welcome to the second day of the 2024 AVC Challenge Cup for Women live here on Pilipinas Live and on One Sports Plus. It is day number 2, and we have a full slate of games for you here today as we try to determine who will advance to the semifinals. First up here, you see the rival of our teams, Indonesia and Hong Kong, who are set to contest the first matchup here today. And of course, when a volleyball comes to the historic Rizal Memorial Coliseum, there's always so much to watch out for. Take a look at the full slate here today. Indonesia and Hong Kong will tip off the first matchup here. And of course, a lot of people will be awaiting the debut of Team Philippines against Australia in Pool A later on tonight. Hello, I'm Paolo Del Rosario alongside Denise Tan calling this game for you. Denise, take a look at these two teams here in particular. We're seeing a completely different Indonesia team, and of course Hong Kong will try to bounce back from what was an opening day loss.
You know, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Hong Kong, of course, is an intact team, but they went through baptism of fire. We were talking about this earlier on against Vietnam yesterday, and Indonesia, such a young team here in this Challenge Cup.
Let's take a look at the lineup of Indonesia just to emphasize that point. Now, their oldest member of this team is actually just at 22 years old, while it is an average of 19-year-olds here for this group.
You know, actually, if you look at their lineup, there are players as young as 16 years old. We're talking about Nurtomo, and that is Santi on that list. So again, a lot of players from Indonesia are playing in the Pro Liga back home. They are trying to boost up their lineup for, you know, some of the international games. For the past 3 years, Indonesia has managed to come up with a bronze medal in the last 3 SEA Games. So they're really focusing on that, and they're sending younger players to get much more exposure and experience here at the Challenge Cup.
And of course, that experience will come in the form of taking on a Hong Kong team that you mentioned is intact and will be looking to bounce back from an opening day loss. But you take a look at this lineup, they're going to be hoping that their experience will really give them dividends here today.
Well, they were going up against the defending champions of Vietnam, but you know, their team as intact as they are with Vietnam, all 10 players who played in that last game scored. They were also out-attacked. 48-28 is the count. They were out-blocked 6-0 and out-served 4-1. So just a lot of things that Hong Kong needs to improve on in this game.
Take a look at Bella Sabrina Agustina on your screen right now, who is expected to be one of the key contributors here for Indonesia, is the oldest member of this group at a very young age of 22 years old. And of course, very popular in Indonesia as well. It'll be interesting to see just how she stacks up here against this team that has a lot of experience already. I know they've only won 2 games last time around, but Denise, they will be relying a lot on Ching Wim Lam.
Well, Ching Wing Lam, of course, was the highest pointer in the last game against Vietnam. She had 9 points. But again, she needs a lot of support from her teammates. Not really getting a lot of offensive attacks. You have also team captain Yu, who only had 7 points. Next is Yim, only having 5 points in that last game against Vietnam.
And a few of the highlights here from Wing Lam Chim of Hong Kong. Again, it was always going to be a tough task going against the finalists from the last edition of the AVC Challenge Cup. But they're going to be hoping that what they've gained from that day will be able to push them to victory here against one of the top teams from the last edition of the Challenge Cup. Let's take a look at the pool standings in Pool B. Kazakhstan and Vietnam getting the first wins of the group, while Hong Kong and Singapore absorbing losses in their first day, while Indonesia making their debut here. Once again, for those who do not know about the format here, the top 2 teams will advance to these semifinals, and of course, the winner of this will advance to the FIVB Challenger Cup as well. So a lot to play for here, as the Pool B, obviously at this early juncture, still all up for grabs. Once again, Indonesia and Hong Kong when we return here at the Rizal Memorial Coliseum. Don't go away.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from the Rizal Memorial Coliseum, Manila, Philippines. This is day number 2 of the AVC Challenge Cup 2024 Women's Division. This is match number 5 of the tournament preliminary round for Group B, featuring Indonesia. And their opponents across the net, Hong Kong. Introducing our 2 international officials for this match. Our first referee, Mahinder Singh Saharan from India. And our second referee is Nazrin Hakshinas from Iran. Let's meet the starters. First, for Indonesia. Opposite hitter number 4, team captain Bella Agustina. Middle blocker number 2, Rara Tegariani. Middle blocker number 6, Fanny Chaya Ningtias. Outside spiker number 18, Putri Agustin. Outside spiker number 20, Junaida Santi. And center number 22, Rara Rizkamara. Starting libero number 24, Hawa Nur Fitria. Head coach for Indonesia is Pedro Lilipali. And now the starters for Hong Kong. Outside spiker number 15, team captain Yu Ying Tie. Center number 3, Fong Tian. Outside spiker number 8, Chim Wing Lam. Opposite hitter number 14, Sham Lam. Middle blocker number 17, Fong Kai Yi. And middle blocker number 30, Yim Wing Ni. Their starting libero is number 11, Pang Wing Nam. Head coach for Hong Kong is Kwok Kin Twin.
Let's take a look at the starters here for Indonesia. Again, their first game here. And all eyes will be on Bella Sabrina Agustina, the team captain, as well as the most veteran member of this young squad. Again, an average age of 19 years old. The youngest player is around 17 or so, while on the other side in Hong Kong, again, this is a team relatively unchanged from their last matchup against Vietnam. They went up against one of the powerhouses of the region. Unfortunately for them, it was a loss in straight sets, so eager to bounce back here. You know, Denise, you take a look at these two squads. For Indonesia, it will be tough to replicate what they did the last time around in the last AVC Challenge Cup, especially with such a young group. But then that could all change depending on how they start here today.
And you know what? Regardless of the result of this whole Challenge Cup, this will be good for the team in general because they are trying to, again, get more experience, get more exposure for all of these players. Especially for some of them who's just 16 years old.
Attack from the back there, dealt well with by Hong Kong. And that time, drawing first blood, Hong Kong scores.
Good change up there by Hong Kong. It was sort of a missed set, but a setter still going for that A quick.
Hong Kong lost the first frame against Vietnam, 25-13, in what was the roughest of starts inimaginable here in the AVC Challenge Cup, while Indonesia, of course, again, and we talked about it over and over, the youth of this squad right now getting a rough welcome as well against Hong Kong.
And, you know, Hong Kong really trying to change it up. It is a better start for them. They are starting with their team captain, Ying Chi Yu. She didn't start. She was off the bench in their first game against Vietnam.
Set up again, and still, rather, that is the first point here coming for Indonesia, as Santi finally puts him on the board.
And Junaida Santi, one of those 16 years old players that I've been talking about, she's actually considered as the future, quote-unquote, future of Indonesian volleyball, as she started playing in the Pro Liga at just her young age.
Of course, let's see whether or not she can match up to those lofty expectations. And Indonesia, all of a sudden, after taking on a 2-0 spring from Hong Kong, now evens things up. Another look at that there. As again, this Indonesia team, so much expectation and so much investment in their younger players. It's going to be an opportunity for them to show that they're ready for the big time. But as I say that, Hong Kong regained the lead courtesy of Fong Kai-yi.
Fong Kai-yi adjusting well. Set was kind of too short for her, but no problem with her speed. Good save.
Good save there as Hong Kong tried to recover. But once again, Indonesia go to their captain. That time, left that too long.
Good call by their libero, Pang Wen Nam. Seeing that the ball is over her shoulder, letting it go.
You take a look at the raw numbers here between these two teams. Indonesia is listed as the team that are supposedly taller on average, but just looking at the eye test here, feels a bit different considering the front line here of Hong Kong. Back set dealt well with. Good rally here between these two. Hong Kong keeps that alive. And the swing and the hit once again as Santi is starting to heat up here early.
Santi just getting through the gap of those two blockers. Let's check it out again. Oh, check that. That was through Fong Kai-yi.
And Junaida Santi off to a great start here for Indonesia, trying to even things up. Good serve. And there, the misreception, communication not quite there.
Lucky break for Hong Kong. It was a mishit. Wasn't really much of a contact there. But miscommunication on the side of Indonesia, just helping Hong Kong's cause.
Now we're going to look at the evidences of youth here for Indonesia. Just some of the plays that, with a bit more experience, will finally be dealt with. As Indonesia are showing that they're veteran here. Sabrina, at 22 years old, is here to help guide the team forward. 4 serving 5 here as Indonesia look to even things up again. And that time the push was just enough for Hong Kong. That was Shum Lam.
Smart push by Shum Lam, just getting it to the donut hole of that Indonesian defense.
2-point lead here for Hong Kong, doing just enough to keep Indonesia at bay. Shum Lam with the serve. Rara with the setup, and that time just enough to get past the blockers. Chaya Ningtyas getting the point. And at that time, Him Wing Ni was unable to direct that the other way.
Good attack. 1-2 attack coming from Fong Kilian. Again, there's a big hole in the middle of the court for Indonesia.
A few coverage issues there as well. You referenced it a while ago already. But so far, so good here for Hong Kong. Despite Indonesia tying things up early, it's a 2-point lead for them. Well, make that 1 after Agustin pulls one back.
Agustin seeing 2 blockers in front of her, so that down the line hit well covered, trying to go for that cut. And beautiful angle from her.
Well, Putri Agustin on the service line here for Indonesia. That time good blocking here from Indonesia. But that time the coverage was there. Better net defense shown here. And that time did not even go beyond the tape.
Yep, 4 touches called on Hong Kong.
And all of a sudden we're all knotted up at 7 again. It's been a bit back and forth here. Jim, that time pulling that back. And Hong Kong once again with a precarious 1-point lead. Just to contrast the ages here, as we mentioned a while ago, average age of 19 is Indonesia, while on the other end, Hong Kong have an average age of 25. And the oldest player in this group, or rather the most experienced player, stands at 32 years old.
Be careful there.
I feel like you were the one offended for these players. But Hong Kong now with a 2-point lead once again, that time getting that past the single block. Let's take a look at that again. That's Shum Lam, who has had a good start here. You know, we asked for who could help Chim Wang Lam of Hong Kong, and so far Shum Lam is the person providing a bit of scoring. And that time, Indonesia just could not deal with that. All of a sudden, it's a 3-0 sprint here, 3-0 rally for Hong Kong. Yim Wing Ni on the service line here for Hong Kong. Oh, the wind-up and the hit dealt well with by Hong Kong, but then unable to get that pass. So Shum Lam apologizing immediately for the mishit.
8
serving 10, a chance here for Indonesia to come back just a bit here. Chai Ningtas going for it. And Jim able to find the right angle.
Yep. Seemed like there was a bit of a check there too. But right on the corner as well. Yeah, there was a check there too.
Well, Hong Kong, once again, had a couple of wins in the last edition of the AVC Challenge Cup, but they're going to be hoping that retaining this lineup will help them have an even better result here. Shum Lam getting the check, and it goes to Hong Kong.
Yep. This time getting it through 2 blockers, finding that gap in the middle of the net defense. Seeing that the middle blocker was late for that attack.
Suing for time here. First time out of the contest, assistant in.
Receive. Bagus. Naik boleh. Ya, naik boleh. Sekali mukul poin, harus poin. Jangan nggak poin. Kalau nggak poin dia serang balik. Ya?
Oh ya.
Oke? Terus untuk blok di depan. Jangan orang pinggir jangan terlalu pinggir. Masuk ke dalam aja. Karena bola-bolanya sering cross. Ya? Oke? Bisa ya?
I would love to tell you exactly what was said in that huddle, but unfortunately, only Denise understands Indonesian.
Well,
so I'm going to.
I obviously can't understand word for word, but seeing how the coach was gesturing for the block, they needed to close it out, close out that gap, and it's the job actually of the wing blocker to be able to get in front of that hitting hand coming from Hong Kong.
And right after timeout, a service ace here for Hong Kong, now up in their lead here, 13-8. Let's take a look at that again. Great hit here coming from Feng Zijian. Better reception here coming from Indonesia. The push not quite strong enough. And they go to Chim again, who is starting to heat up.
Again, Chim finding the advantage at the net, seeing the middle blocker again late for that attack. And this is the reason, one of the reasons why she went down the line. Look at that, the hands of the blocker not even touching that ball.
Here's Feng again. She has been camped in that service line for quite a bit here.
Oh.
Oh, and that time Indonesia with a great reply, as Santi has been a bright spot here for the Indonesians.
Yeah, not just for this game, but for Indonesian volleyball, just 16 years old. She will be turning 17 in 2 months, 3 months.
And, you know, just a reminder here that none of these players in Indonesia were born in the 90s. As Santi Junaida Santi rather, getting the point there for Indonesia once again.
I was going to say, so was I. I wasn't born in the 90s.
That's in the completely different direction. That's in a completely different direction. As someone born in the 90s, I can tell you that right now. And that time it was Shum again scoring for Hong Kong. Once again, we asked a while ago who can come out and help Chim Wang Lam, and it has been rather Shum Lam for Hong Kong. The setup again to the opposite wing. That time, great coverage here coming from Hong Kong. Now from the back, still Hong Kong, very good in terms of their coverages here. Good rally here so far. Trying a bit of a softer approach here from Indonesia. And the wind up, the hit, and still Indonesia's there.
Nice.
That time finally ending it as Agustina found the gap.
Well, Agustina going long in that last attack. You know, the tendency is the longer the rally, all the more that the players will maybe take one step further into the net. Trying to anticipate a hard attack.
Still a 4-point lead though for Hong Kong. That's that time the serve just short here for Santi. Change here as Santi will check out in favor of Gendis. Fabiane.
Now serving
Hong Kong looking to up their advantage even further. Could turn this into a more commanding lead with a few more points here. That time, first to the net is Hong Kong.
Ooh, set was too low for Yim Wing Ni, but she was able to get it over the net. Just finding the right angle where she would hit that ball.
Finding the space there near the corner. As Hong Kong will try and continue this good run of theirs. Wong Kai-yi on the service line. That time, just getting enough power on that push. A bit of a touch from the blockers there, but unable to slow that down just enough as Indonesia are still looking to overturn a 5-point deficit. Good defense shown there by Hong Kong. And that time, the coverage behind the blockers, not quite there. And so far, as Indonesia are trying to pressure Hong Kong here and forcing a timeout from their end. Let's listen in.
暫停啦！你以為會發生嗰件事係冇可能㗎，你每一件事都要做一個充足嘅準備，有一個來回球嘅嗰個機會，冇可能一下打可以攞得分。OK， 打個全連起嚟嘅啫。OK， 啱啱打非常好，哇，都係比較穩定，能夠可以控制到佢。我哋自己嘅心暫時嗰啲 OK， 好嘛？再來，再來。
Again, Hong Kong, after being pegged back by a few points in the past few, it's just trying to get some momentum back here, or at least trying to stop the momentum of Indonesia. Still trying to come back from this 4-point deficit.
Oh,
And that time,
good fake coming from Hong Kong.
great time out there from Hong Kong as well.
Yim Wing Nia tracking the blockers, freeing out the opposite.
18 serving 13, serving for Hong Kong.
18 serving 13 here as Hong Kong look to really up their tally.
Ooh.
And that's a great reply coming from Sabrina.
A bit mistimed by Agustina. So, but a challenge here.
Let's take a look at that again and see if there is merit to that. And can't really see it from that angle, but of course we have the challenge system here to provide for that. So ball in, ball out is the challenge here coming from Hong Kong. Again, thank you very much for joining us here in the AVC Challenge Cup, happening here in Manila, Philippines. Very sunny, very hot Manila, Philippines. As Hong Kong are looking to overturn that last point coming from Indonesia. And what has been a frame that they are starting to find out more about each other, as Indonesia, of course, making their debut here in the competition, in this tournament rather, this edition of the tournament. While Hong Kong looking to bounce back from an opening day loss against Vietnam, where they lost in 3 straight sets, 25-13, 25-17, and 25-16. Let's take a look at that, and that is clearly in.
Yeah.
And a challenge there that they will lose, talking about Hong Kong.
The challenge is unsuccessful. Pointed serve to Indonesia.
Unsuccessful challenge there. But of course, you know, challenges here are interesting, considering that sometimes it could be used as an artificial timeout.
Yes.
Sabrina with another hit. Great coverage there from Hong Kong. The setup once again, and that time trying to be a bit more creative. Indonesia there first at the net. Bit of a scramble there. And that time, great net defense. Shum? No. And Sabrina again. You with a soft touch, but that doesn't amount to much. Good rally here between these two. Very disciplined. And that time getting that past the block.
Shum Lam finally ending that rally, catching the blocker with a bigger gap between the hands and the net. So if you want to get total control when you're blocking, there shouldn't be that big of a gap. You would want to get your hands over the net.
Here's Yu Ying-chi, the captain of Hong Kong. And with another service ace, the second of the match here so far, second in this first frame.
So in terms of aces, they've done a better job as compared to their matchup against Vietnam, where they only got one.
Well, they also had a bit of a trouble with their service reception in that game against Vietnam. Obviously doing a bit better here. Jim. Great hit. And the efforts there for Indonesia. Good save as a free ball here for Hong Kong.
Nice.
Great finish there as Hong Kong now are up 21-14.
Remember, if the other team is scrambling for the other on the other side, trying to get back to their respective positions, what you really want to do is go for the first tempo attack, and that's exactly what they did with that back quick.
Indonesia super time once again. Let's listen in.
Tolong ya. Kompetitor udah bilang ya. Kalian masa nggak lihat sih? Dia kalau dipukul gitu aja loh masih bisa. Kenceng sekalian. Kalau perlu taspol. Kecuali kalau bolanya memang benar-benar mepet di net. Kamu usahanya gimana kan gitu kan? Untuk quicker sikat aja udah. Ya. Yuk. Kita bisa, masih bisa ya. Kita, hey, defense sih bagus ya. Yo.
21-14, Indonesia looking to try and stop the tide here as Hong Kong have started to look increasingly comfortable here in this game. Again, still frame number one. A lot can still change, but Hong Kong are looking like they've adapted here early. First game of a 4-game slate here in day 2 of the AVC Challenge Cup. And only the top 2 teams will advance past the pool phase. And the rest will be left up to classification. And that time again, there has been an issue with the coverage here of Indonesia. You've referenced that donut hole that this Hong Kong team has found repeatedly in the first frame.
Well, Indonesia is doing the right thing. They should be, waiting for those long attacks. It is always easier to adjust moving forward than backward, but the reaction time just not there for Indonesia.
And that time, it was Kaya Ninjas getting the point from Indonesia, stopping the bleeding for the moment.
Something that Indonesia needs to do more of in the next few frames. Couldn't let Hong Kong have those many runs.
And that's a great serve there coming from Indonesia. All of a sudden, a 2-point burst from them, and their body language has started to change for the better.
Definitely something that you would want to see from a young team like Indonesia. I mean, you're trailing by, what, 7? Is that? Oh, 6 points, rather.
6-point lead there. And
Make that
another
5,
ace.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, Putri Agustin has been putting on a show, and cue the timeout from Hong Kong to stop the momentum. 3 straight points here from Indonesia. Putri Agustin with the 2 aces back-to-back. Let's listen in once again to Hong Kong.
擺喺度已經夠啦，你唔需要去追過去㗎，佢係一條線㗎嘛，係嘛？大家都接到，冇問題，再嚟。OK。你 call 住，打一支。OK。其他人準備打，準備追啦，我哋打翻收直咯，唔緊要，繼續，喂，俾信心自己。係啦。3分，搶3分。1、2、3，再打。
We did mention a while ago that Hong Kong had a bit of a trouble with their service reception against Vietnam, and it has come back to haunt them here towards the tail end of this first frame. Putri Agustin, with a couple of aces, has suddenly put Indonesia within a shout here against Hong Kong, who do still lead 22-17. Another good serve there at that time, dealt better. And the points right on the mark. Another great timeout coming from Hong Kong.
Chim Wing Lang, again, finding the gap between 2 blockers. Big enough for her to squeeze her way through.
Yim Wing Ni here to try and put the finishing touches of this first frame. Good net defense shown there by Hong Kong. No kill block though. Kept alive. They go to their captain once again, and just a bit too low.
Too near the net for Chim Wing Lang. Immediately apologizing to the coach.
18 serving 23. It was their service game that got them a bit in more of a better position here. Talking about Indonesia.
Good serve.
And is this another one? That time it's going to be a free ball. Almost a miscommunication there. Good recovery here by Hong Kong so far. And Indonesia are trying by hook or by crook to pull themselves back into this frame. And getting that off the blockers. Hong Kong doing just enough. Well, the first frame between Hong Kong and Vietnam, it only took 20 minutes for Vietnam to overthrow Hong Kong 25-13. At the moment, we're at the 27th minute of this frame between these two, as Indonesia have proven to be a bit stubborn here against this Hong Kong side. Sabrina keeps Indonesia in this. But from here on in, have to pitch a perfect game from the service line. Talking about Indonesia as we take a look at that hit again from Sabrina. And another service ace here. The service reception of Hong Kong. Still the biggest chink in their armor so far.
And Hong Kong has to be careful here. Just looking at Indonesia, their body language has totally shifted. A lot more confident here in the first frame.
You can see they're a bit more relaxed as well. They're not as tight as when they started.
Another good serve.
And they are insisting that there's a check ball. Talking about Hong Kong. I believe they will challenge this one. So yes, they will be challenging a block touch, and Indonesia conferred with each other to say that yes, they definitely did not touch it, but of course we'll let the cameras decide. Of course, this is for the frame here if you're Hong Kong. Again, looking to bounce back from a 25-13, 25-17, and 25-16 loss against Vietnam in their last contest. Of course, they're going to be hoping that that one game was an aberration and they would have a more fruitful Challenge Cup here. Again, only winning 2 games in the last edition of the Challenge Cup. Looking for win number 1 and attempt number 2. Talking about this Hong Kong team, while Indonesia, as they hosted the tournament last time around, made it all the way to the finals, but unfortunate for them, fell a bit short in a 5-setter. Obviously a completely different lineup from that group. And we're going to see if there's a block touch there, and no block touch as seen. And the second lost challenge here from Hong Kong. So the point goes Indonesia's way. No more challenge here for Hong Kong. Camara with the serve there. And a soft touch dealt well with by the libero. They go back to Sabrina. And Indonesia refused to bow as they go back to the raise. And that time Sabrina with the swing pulls them within 2. And all of a sudden, we are just 2 points away from extending this frame.
And the setter here of Indonesia, Rizal Memorial, just letting everybody move, the blockers move on the side of Hong Kong. And that is why Agustina eventually got freed up at the opposite side.
Rizal Memorial. And that is too long, and the momentum ends with Hong Kong escaping with a 25-22 win in set number 1. It's been a good contest here so far, with Indonesia coming up in confidence as take a look at some of the highlights from that first frame. Hong Kong found the rhythm a bit early. Indonesia found a bit of momentum as well, but it came too little too late. Denise, you take a look at how Hong Kong started and how they ended. A bit of a concern here from the coaching staff.
Well, you know what? Hong Kong started off real strong. They were attacking more in that first set. A lot of combination plays as well coming from the white shirts, but towards the end they were committing a lot of errors, simple errors too. There were miscommunications on the side of reception, and that's why we saw 3 aces coming from the side of Indonesia. So Hong Kong here being the much more experienced team, of course you would want as a coach, if you're Coach Kwok Kin Chun, for them to really talk it out, polish things up, and do better here in the second set.
Well, of course, the start for Indonesia was less than ideal, but the way they ended does give them a lot of hope moving forward. So let's see whether or not they can carry a bit of what they showed towards the end of that first frame into the second. While Hong Kong, well, it's a bit of a wake-up call for them, really, how they ended that first frame, with the service reception being one of the key issues. Again, we identified that against Vietnam, and of course it is showing up against Indonesia here again, with those three aces of Indonesia coming at the tail end of the first frame.
Especially since Indonesia gained a lot of momentum, gained a lot of confidence towards the end of that first set. Hong Kong again needs to be careful coming here in the second. The tightness that we saw from Indonesia definitely gone.
Well, if you're Hong Kong, I'm sure they've seen it time and time again. When a young upstart team starts feeling some energy, starts feeling some momentum, they need to have a strong start as well to kind of smother that. As, of course, some of the players here at the venue seeing themselves on the big screen, sometimes unavoidable, and cracking a little smile as well. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here in the AVC Challenge Cup, especially for those in Manila and watching those around the world. Thank you very much for joining us here. Set number 2 on the way, as Indonesia on the right of your screen are looking to even things up against Hong Kong in their white kits here, as Santi unable to really receive that. And once again, it's Hong Kong who score first. You know, standouts from Hong Kong in that first frame, apart from the usual suspect, Chim Wing Lam, they also got a lot of help coming around here from Shum Lam, who was also pretty consistent all throughout. And that time, the net defense of Hong Kong doubles up the lead.
Back-to-back points coming from Chim Win Lam. First from an attack, and this time from the net defense.
Offense and defense on point here so far for Chim Wing Lam and the rest of Hong Kong. That time, returning the point, courtesy of a service error. That was Fong Xian, who gives Indonesia their first here, set number 2. Now a chance here to see whether or not Santi can continue what was a very good service game towards the end of the first frame. That time, the net Z scoring for Indonesia to even things up at 2 apiece. Indonesia barely saw any of the lead, if any, in set number 1. A chance for them to steal it here. Junaida Santi on the service line for Indonesia.
Again, all 3 points of Hong Kong coming from Chim Win Lam.
That time scoring off the block and apologizing, because I believe she may have gotten the face of Sabrina. Let's take a look at that again. Just great show of sportsmanship there coming from Hong Kong. And that time, you know, there was a lot of that going the other way against them for Indonesia, finding that gap in the middle, especially if you were Hong Kong. This time, Indonesia giving them a taste of their own medicine. Barely keeping that alive, talking about Hong Kong. But the miscomm there, mispass coming from Indonesia gives Hong Kong a chance. That time from the back, no good. Better set up there. Putri Agustin, who has had a good game here so far from Indonesia, liking this setup.
And this is the set that is great for her, just not too high, quicker as well for her to take advantage of that leap.
That time off the block, and it is Shum again.
Shum using the hands of the blockers, targeting that left forearm.
Fongkai with the serve. Putri Agustin's stopped there, but still alive, and that time, Riz Camara showed that she has some offense in her as well.
You know, the thing is with Indonesia, they didn't really go for any 1-2 attacks back in the first set, and I think that's the reason why Hong Kong really isn't expecting it here.
So far, it's Indonesia with the lead here. Again, they had a slow start in that first frame, especially down the middle of that set. But Hong Kong immediately draw level, 5-all. This time it was Yu Ying-chi, who is starting to help carry the scoring load here of Chim Wing Lam. Chim Lam. That time from the back. Chim Lam again, scoring off the blockers.
Again, with Indonesia, what they need to do here if they want to have a better net defense is to close that gap. Chum Lam and the rest of the Hong Kong spikers just going through those gaps.
Chum Lam again. Good serve, but dealt well with by Indonesia. Coverage was there for Hong Kong. Santi. Good rally here between these two so far. Very active defenses, and it is Indonesia who come up with the point. Putri Agustin scoring here for the Indonesians. Now we're seeing a good matchup here between these two. The experience of Hong Kong coming up, as well as the excitement and the youthful exuberance of this Indonesian side also fully on show. Putri Agustin with a heavy serve. Oh, but kept alive there. What an effort coming from Indonesia. And that time, not the strongest of hits, but it was strong enough. Just enough contact there coming from Chaya Ningtas.
Miss-hit from Chaya Ningtas, but either way, goes to the right spot.
Putri Agustin on the service line again. Indonesia touting a 1-point lead. The wind-up dealt well with by Santi.
Yeah, not over. Double violation.
So there's going to be a challenge here coming from Indonesia. If I'm not mistaken, their first of this contest. They're going to be challenging the block touch here. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here on the AVC Challenge Cup. Indonesia trying to even things up here against Hong Kong, who won the first frame. And of course, 25-22 was the count there. With Indonesia getting a bit more momentum, getting a bit more comfortable here in the AVC Challenge Cup in their debut towards the tail end of that set. And while Hong Kong, China were doing just enough, did enough with their experience, with their professionalism to stop any momentum, pour some cold water on that hot flame that Indonesia had built up towards the end. But Indonesia here have come out of the first frame a bit more competitive, a bit more comfortable, and shown in the way that they are able to execute here. Of course, still waiting on the block touch challenge from our replay review. And of course, a light moment here for our players as we all wait for the judgment here.
Well, Coach Pedro here again, asking for a net touch. It was too sharp of a set to the middle attacker, but it is clear
that it is not a block touch according to our cameras. And then you can actually see just how close it was. It's an unsuccessful challenge there. But the margins were razor thin. And we're going to let the referees decide that. And all of a sudden, getting a bit of help from the tape is Hong Kong. And all of a sudden, they are up by 1. Yu Ching getting the point there. Swing from the back. Dealt well with by Hong Kong. And the effort there coming from Sabrina. Just not enough here as Hong Kong now have a 2-point lead. Let's take a look at that again.
Well, Hong Kong again going for those soft tips, soft hits.
And the momentum starting to swing Hong Kong's way. Indonesia looking for a good reply here. Santi. The net defense of Hong Kong has caused some trouble here, and all of a sudden it's a 3-0 sprint. And keep the timeout for Indonesia as we take a look at that again. The blocking ever present here for Hong Kong.
Crucial for Indonesia to solidify their coverage here.
Ini sih bagus ya. Kenapa nyerang lo nggak bagus? Ayo. Sekali poin, nggak bisa kalau nggak poin. Yo ya. Yo. Rara. Udah kasih pinggir-pinggir dulu.
Sama ya.
Yo. Berani yo. Bisa.
Indonesia trailing by 3 after it was all knotted up at 7 apiece here. Hong Kong taking full advantage of first that lost challenge from Indonesia. And of course getting a bit of luck courtesy of an ace that tickled the tape before falling in. This time it is Yu Yingqing who has found herself camped in the service line for quite a bit. So that may be on the commentator as a service error sends it the other way. A bit of a commentator's curse there. It happens even in international play. Indonesia, chance to pull within 1 here. Chai Ningtyas has had a good second frame here for Indonesia.
Well
and
covered.
that time, Santi scoring there for Indonesia. Chai Ningtyas trying to tie things up here. And that sign, a point going the way of Indonesia, and all of a sudden, it is their turn to go on a 3-0 run. Double contact is the call against Hong Kong. Chai Ningtyas with the serve. They had a great pop in it. Shum Lam, that time getting a bit of help from the tape, but Indonesia is there to cover it. Good blocking coming from Hong Kong. And Indonesia just unable to recover.
Indonesia caught standing in the defense. Again, it's their coverage that's really not helping them here in the second set.
It's been a competitive second frame here, but as we saw in the first, there's a chance that Hong Kong could get a bit of momentum here, and the question will be is whether or not Indonesia could cope as well. Swing to the wing. And Santi. Stopped by the blockers with that. Sabrina Agustin sends it the other way. The soft touch. Better coverage coming from Indonesia. Again. Indonesia showing better defense here. Going back and forth between these two. Dealt well with the runner. They go back to Santi. And they are able to finally end it and tie it up at 11-all. Cue the timeout from Hong Kong as Indonesia, who were trailing by 3 just a while ago, have knotted it up again at 11-all. Well, Hong Kong and Indonesia knotted up at 11 apiece here. Has been a better day in terms of the reception here in set number 2 for Indonesia. But for Hong Kong, they've also shown a bit more active net defense here early in set number 2. Still a long way to go, though. Not at 11-all. Here's Rizkamara, the setter for Indonesia on the service line. Has shown us as well that she has an eye to score. Good serve from Rizkamara. Lam finding the space in the corner.
Zone 1 just way open for Lam.
Look at that there, and all of a sudden Hong Kong have the lead. Feng Ziyan trying to add on to that. It's been back and forth here. No team really pulling away in set number 2, but that would be
a net
touch against Indonesia. You're absolutely right. Well, apart from the odd error here or there, it's been kept relatively clean here between these two teams. So it feels like every error hurts a bit more. From Ziyan with the serve there. Sabrina, not that time. And Wing scoring again from the wing. Shim Wing Lam, who has been one of the more constant threats here for Hong Kong, has now given them a 3-point lead. Again, the net defense has come alive here from Hong Kong. It feels that has been a point of emphasis here coming from this Hong Kong side.
Subdivision for Indonesia, number 22, number 10.
Azara comes in here for Indonesia. Trying to give them a different look here. Talking about the Indonesians. Feng Ziyan. Barely kept alive. Free ball to play with here. And we play on.
A lot of control coming from Shim Wen Lang. Again, 2 blockers right in front of her, going for that angle, going for the top spin hit. Just finding that angle right at zone 4.
Again, this is what we saw in set number 1. Just a bit of a lull here coming from the scoring of Indonesia. Now with Hong Kong holding a 5-point lead. And Sabrina ends the drought. Bella Sabrina Agustina The captain, the most veteran member of this young squad, leading by example here for the Indonesians. Junaida Santi with the serve. Shumlam stopped in her attack. They go to the other side. Good coverage here from Indonesia. Putri Agustin gave them a bit to think about with that hit. Putri Agustin again, doing something a bit different. Shumlam. And a miss hit from the back. An attack error coming from Junaida Santi.
Junaida Santi wanted to be safe. She tried to get it over the net with like a flat ball so that it would be easily going over that net, crossing that net. But not a lot of power in that hit.
Well, you saw it in her face as soon as she made contact. Now Santi goes back to the bench for the moment. As we have Hong Kong here, courtesy of Chin Wing Lam on the service line. Putri Agustin. And Indonesia managed to keep that alive. Free ball here for Hong Kong to play with. What can they do with Indonesia in the scramble? Kept alive here. Couldn't really take advantage of that as Putri Agustin sends it the other way.
Double violation there. Called on Fong.
Double contact there. 4-point lead still though for Hong Kong as Indonesia, you know, they're seeing a bit more activity, a bit more pep in their step. And it will be Nurtomo. Chelsea Nurtomo on the service line. Good serve.
Too low. A touch.
That will be a net touch there. Putri Agustin named as culprit. 5-point lead now for Hong Kong as they are finding a way here to really put down the upstarts of Indonesia. Again, a good start for Indonesia in this frame, but they have started to fade here, and Hong Kong have capitalized. Fong Kai Yi with the serve.
Wow. Yim Wing Ni just wanting to take over. Not allowing Indonesia to be the right spot on their defense, and everybody again caught standing on the side of Indonesia.
Kalau kita ketinggalan jauh, ngejarnya yang susah. Ya, kayak saya pertama tadi loh, susah. Risik naik aja yo. Ya. Pukul kencang. Jangan ragu-ragu pukulnya. Oke? Yuk masih bisa. Yuk. Yuk. Basic dulu yuk, pindah dulu yuk, pindah dulu.
Indonesia.
Indonesia looking for a way to stop this momentum from Hong Kong. Once again, in the middle of this frame, they just weren't able to produce anything on the attacking end.
And Coach Lilipali, again, I mean, we couldn't really make out anything out of that timeout. But one thing that we understood clearly was receive, and they have to get that first ball to even try to have some sort of offense against Hong Kong. But it's those, you know, setting errors that's coming off not really a good first ball that's being quite a challenge for Indonesia.
There you can see Serena encouraging everyone to try and keep their heads up and find a bit of that groove again. But it is Hong Kong who have looked increasingly more comfortable here in this frame. Good coverage, and unfortunately for them, unable to keep that alive as that goes into the stands. 20-13 the count here. 21-13 rather is the count.
And again, if you would compare the body language right now of Hong Kong to Indonesia. Indonesia is back to how they were in the early part of the first set.
Again, score has been corrected,
That's an ace.
21-13. But as I say that, it's now up 22-13, courtesy of that ace. 22 serving 13. Hong Kong have gone on this incredible run here midway through this frame, and Indonesia don't have a reply. Putri Agustin with the swing. Good coverage there coming from Hong Kong. Lam again.
So what Hong Kong is doing here is that they're targeting the corners. They see the defense of Indonesia not really expecting or waiting for those long attacks. Hong Kong did get a lot of points from those soft tips, going for the donut hole, but again, it's easier to move forward than backward, so Indonesia should really cover their end lines.
Fong Kai looking to put the finishing touches of this frame. And Indonesia, of course, will try and make the score a bit more respectable here.
Too low.
I managed to push that across, though, as Nita able to score off the block. Nita Cesanti coming in and having a bit of an impact here. But of course, will require more than that to overturn this advantage come from Hong Kong. Now up by 9. Oh, and Nita again. And that was opportunistic there coming from Cesanti. As we take a look at that again, the overreceive. And there it is. Hong Kong can take advantage of that. Cesanti again. Not that time. Nita. And Cesanti has come out and scored 3 straight on her own.
You know, before she came in, she was all pumped up by the sidelines. She was talking to the assistant coach, to her teammates at the bench. And she's just a fire starter now for Indonesia.
Better blocking, and all of a sudden, Indonesia are making this competitive yet again. It was a 10-point lead just a while ago, but cue the timeout here with Indonesia starting to come in.
點解動作都慢咗啦？點解動作都反而都冇個發力嘅動作啦？呢個係我哋不嬲都出現到個問題㗎。OK， 喂，你就係嗰個啦。出去跑翻3個花圈先啦。集中兩個。OK。好慢啊！喐腳係要慢咗啊！成隊都慢咗。條氣啊！跑過嚟。喂，捉下啦！
Let's take a look at this again. This time the net D providing the scoring here coming from Indonesia. And we have to credit here the instant impact coming from Nita Cesanti rather. But of course, still a long way to go if they want to make this competitive. Barely keeping that alive, and yes, they score again. Indonesia have suddenly woken up.
That's what, 5 straight points for Indonesia. But again, just a lot of miscommunication happening on the side of Hong Kong as well. That ball was kept alive. A chance for them to just send it over, but miscomm.
And a service ace. Indonesia were down by 10, and all of a sudden, they are now within 4. How long can this rally continue? And it is all of a sudden Hong Kong who look a bit flustered here. Shumlam unable to end this rally. Nita again. She's had the hot hand. Not that time. And another kill block here for Indonesia. And it has been an incredible run for them here. A 7-0 sprint coming from the Indonesians.
So well covered by Indonesia. They knew exactly that ball was going to go to the outside spiker because it was a misreceive. So usually it goes to that direction.
And there was just that middle part of the frame where in Hong Kong even erected a double-digit advantage.
Good fake. But a net touch called on Hong Kong.
Net touch, Hong Kong, China.
And Indonesia haven't given up, kept on going, and even the errors are now going their way. 23-21. Still in favor of Hong Kong. As you can see, Hong Kong trying to steady the ship here. Indonesia smell blood. Shumlam. Great net defense again by Indonesia. Good coverage there. They swing it to Sabrina, who's unable to score. Shumlam again. Blocking has slowed things down. Free ball here to play with for Hong Kong. Who do they turn to? And Cecitra Nita once again. My goodness, what an impact she's made here. She's turned this game around.
Santi first to get to that ball. Fung actually was a frontliner. Could have gone for the two-hand attack.
Anita Cesanti has come out here and made the difference. Bella Sabrina Agustina with a chance to tie this one after, again, trailing by double digits. And a service ace ties it up at 23. Timeout here, or rather, no, we will continue playing. As Bella Sabrina Agustina ties it up with this ace. And don't look now, a chance to take the lead. The serve, too long, a bit too excited there, a bit too much mustard on that one.
And you can see her after making that mistake, just stomping her feet.
And still you have Hong Kong, whose advantage was so big. They're going to be happy that they had such a big advantage prior to that run.
Chance for Hong Kong.
Nita again, and Nita is able to tie it up once more.
Absolutely the game changer here for Indonesia. Coming in at what, 23-13 when she came in. 10-0 run. And again, tying things up, extending this second set.
Nita Cesanti now on the service line. Had the hottest of hands here. Kept alive that time. Unable to save that. It is advantage Hong Kong. It has been an entertaining contest here between these two. Let's take a look at that again. Serving forward to frame. That was a sharp serve. And eventually Hong Kong survive. But what a fight from Indonesia. Hong Kong managing to score almost the bare minimum just to survive that one. But what a run from Indonesia. Had the gap not been that big in the middle, it could have been a completely different story.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that is, you know, a lot of it is thanks to Nita Cesanti. Hong Kong, a lot of miscommunication happening on their side. But towards the end, they finally found an answer, whether it be from whatever kind of attack. What's important is they bag set number 2 and they have the advantage.
take a look at some of the highlights and just a bit of what has been a very entertaining set number 2. It was Hong Kong and Indonesia. Both of them getting off to relatively good starts here, just canceling each other out. And then midway through this second frame, it was Hong Kong who really took the cudgels. They were able to up their lead up to a double-digit advantage, but all of a sudden, enter Nita Cesanti, who was able to not just make it a respectable scoreline, but gave Indonesia a chance here to actually come in and steal the frame. It was a 10-point advantage for Hong Kong, but it all disappeared as soon as Nita Cesanti decided to really impose herself in this one. But so far, it is a 2-0 lead here in terms of sets in favor of Hong Kong after escaping Indonesia. Once again, the question will be, can they actually find a way to start strong and end stronger? Talking about Indonesia coming to set number 3.
Well, with the way that they were able to close out things in the second set, they came out of a 10-.
Well, basically, they went
I'm
on a
running out of
10-0
breath, I'm so
run
sorry.
with a 23 all after coming down from 13-23. But you take a look at the stats here between these two. The blocking here for Hong Kong, much improved. They only had one block in set number 1 and improved by 4 there. And the net defense was one of the things that gave Indonesia so much problems in set number 2. And of course, on the other end, you take a look at Indonesia, majority of their attack points coming in towards the tail end. Once again, they have started out a bit slow in both frames here today.
But you know, with Indonesia, it's the way that they have chosen their attacks. They've mainly gone back to Cesanti, but she was varying them. She would go cross, go down the line, even go for those top spin hits. So keeping Hong Kong on their toes.
Well, kept Hong Kong on their toes towards the end. And if you're part of the Hong Kong coaching staff, again, it's the way that they've ended frames here that's been an issue for them. Indonesia have mounted 2 near comebacks here in this game so far, but a bit difficult for them to really find that consistency. They have had spurts here when they looked almost undefeatable, but all of a sudden Indonesia come in looking like they're barn burners as well.
Well, the thing that you like about Indonesia is, although they are a very young team, again, average of just 19 years old, they are, they're not about to just back down. I mean, we ended the first set 25-22. That second set was extended one. Again, they had a 10-0 run towards the end, even getting an advantage before we extended the set. So, this team, even though they're down by 2 sets, they will give it their all come here in the third.
Of course, Indonesia battling for survival here, but if you take a look at the experience that they are gaining here with the young group that they have, I'm sure that this will be something that they will look back on, review, and understand that they have the potential to take down more veteran players like these. But of course, right now for Hong Kong, the onus is on them. Can they find a way to end this run, this little rally here from Indonesia? They barely survived set number 2. They're going to try and make it a bit more comfortable here in the third frame. A lot of standouts here for Hong Kong. Of course, Chim Wing Lam has been the usual suspect, but then we also have to give credit to Shum Lam, who has provided steady offense as well. On the other side, Indonesia, Bella Sabrina Agostina coming up big, as well as, of course, Junaida Santi. But it was Nita Cesanti who was able to provide the biggest difference in that second frame. And she will be starting this third one, as expected, given the way that she ended. Again, thank you very much for joining us here on Pilipinas Live on One Sports and on One Sports Plus and wherever you're watching around the world. Thank you very much and welcome to Manila, Philippines. This is the AVC Challenge Cup, Indonesia against Hong Kong, and Hong Kong are looking to put this game to bed in this frame. Shum Lam with the swing and the first point.
That is a good sign for Hong Kong. The way they started out the second set rather, there wasn't too much power in those attacks.
Here's Hong Kong's Fung Ziyan with the serve. And again, it has been Nita Sesanti who has been public enemy number 1 here for Hong Kong starting that second frame. Luis Camara with the serve. Good coverage there. Tap from the back caused a bit of problems. And Chim able to score once again. Chim Wing Lam. Another look at that from Chim. And Chim Wing Lam. Bit consistent here as Hong Kong scored through the net again. And this is exactly what Indonesia want to avoid. They have had a hard time just sorting themselves out here.
And Indonesia just having a problem with their reception again.
Sabrina trying to steady the ship here for the Indonesians.
Ooh, wow. Too much power from that hit coming from Sesanti.
Nita Sesanti, who has honestly hasn't stopped scoring since she entered the game in the second frame.
You know, in the 10-0 run they had in the second set, I believe Sesanti had at least 6 points, maybe even 7.
And that time, the blocking working out there for Indonesia. All knotted up at 3 apiece again. All tied up at 3. As Nita Sesanti takes the service line here.
Ooh.
And the miscom, the mishit. And that will mean the lead goes back to Indonesia.
Just a lot of miscommunication from Hong Kong. Earlier, it was really about their floor defense, but now even connection with the setter.
And a service ace again. As Nita Sesanti has been a problem here for Hong Kong. And cue the timeout. Take a look at that again.
Why? Okay.
Well, Hong Kong, after starting out the frame relatively well here, have now been on the receiving end of a burst from Indonesia. Once again, it has been Nita Sesanti now playing in tandem alongside Bella Sabrina Agustina, who have led the charge here for Indonesia. Shum Lam scoring off the block.
Shum Lam using the hands of the blockers, again just targeting that outer arm.
Or look at that again as chance here for Hong Kong to tie things up. It has been a competitive 2-set game here so far.
Ooh.
Oh, and what a swing coming from Sabrina.
Sabrina loading it up. Oh, just getting through that gap between the antenna and the blockers, freeing up that down the line hit.
Chance here for Indonesia to create a bit of a lead of their own here. Haven't really gotten a sizable lead throughout this entire game so far. It's been Hong Kong who's been doing that. 3 ball to play with here for Hong Kong. Shum Lam has been dangerous here. Whatever Indonesia has thrown at them, Shum Lam has been there to answer.
This time doing it through the combination play. Quicker got the 2 blockers already, so Shum Lam was wide open.
Almost an ace there from Shum Lam, but that time Indonesia managed to send that across anyway, and the hit just too strong coming from Hong Kong.
Yeah, the Hong Kong coaching staff wants to challenge that. Seemed like there was a check. Block touch challenge there for Hong Kong.
And there's a challenge, and of course, we also saw a bit of a light moment there from one of the assistant coaches of Hong Kong. As again, we're at a stage here where it feels like even though it's a 2-0 lead here in favor of Hong Kong in terms of frames, it feels that every point matters here, considering the ability of this Indonesian team to go on really long, unanswered rallies here. Again, checking for the block touch through our challenge system. And is there one? No, there is not. So another missed challenge here coming from Hong Kong. Not quite sure how many challenges so far, but I don't believe a single one has been successful yet. Seven serving 5 here. As Indonesia are looking to erect a bit of a lead of their own, but that time finding space in the corner.
That touches the line.
Another look at that there, clearly in, as Hong Kong have been finding ways to score and keeping things close between these two. And that time unable to keep that alive. Pancake save just a bit too late. Getting that off the blockers that time, as that was Putri Agustin helping with the scoring, and this time with the serve. Better coverage here coming from Hong Kong. Chim Wing Lam able to score.
Chim Wing Lam targeting zone 6. Making the defender in zone 1 move for that ball, and she was too late.
Another look at that here. And for China, for Hong Kong, China, it is Yim Wing Ni. And all of a sudden, they have now found a way to slow down Nita Cesanti, and that's been the net defense that's provided that. Let's take a look at that again. Good swing, but an even better reception here. Chim Wing Lam going to the back, nothing there. And that time, it has been Shum Lam who finds the corner.
The setter here, Fong Chi Yan, and distributing that ball, going to both sides of the net.
Yim Wing Ni on the service line here for Hong Kong. And almost a miscommunication there. And that time, Chim Wing Lam has started to heat up here.
Also, miscommunication on the side of Indonesia. It was Agustin and Fitria. Not really clear on who was supposed to get that ball.
That time scoring off the blockers.
And they've been wanting to get Sasaki to go for those quicker attacks. That was their third attempt, I believe, in the last few possessions of Indonesia.
Chayaning Tias with the score off the block. And it's all of a sudden just a 1-point lead here for Hong Kong. Again, Indonesia had a bit of a lead themselves just a while ago. But the question now is which team will go on a scoring run here as Shum Lam returns a point courtesy of the attack error.
Set was too low for Shum Lam. That has been a trend for Hong Kong whenever they're setting somebody from the back line. It's not really, the ideal height that they would get.
Indonesia go back to Nita. And that time, just finding the space there is Tagariani.
And what you like about what she did is she kind of went up for a swing first. So making Hong Kong think she was going to go for an attack and then just setting the ball over softly.
Chayaning Tias on the service line here. 1-point lead here for the Indonesians, trying to look to extend this game into a fourth frame at the very least. And that's a lot better there coming from Chim Wing Lam, who has been so consistent here for Hong Kong. Now you can see what that means to Chim Wing Lam. Change here for Hong Kong as we see Kong Si Yan again. Or maybe for the first time here, rather, as Kong Si Yan was set to serve. All knotted up at 11 apiece. And once again, it has been Nita Cesanti who has been option number 1 ever since that second frame.
And look at the adjustment. She really had to bend back to make contact with that ball.
Well, she has been a problem here for Hong Kong, as Nita Cesanti has helped lead the charge here, but Hong Kong managing to score again, even things up at 12.
Lucky break for Hong Kong. That was some sort of a misset. Too high for the attacker, Pang Wing Lam.
Chim Wing Lam with the serve. And Sabrina unable to score there for Indonesia. And the captain's just taking turns taking a swing at it. But that time the net defense of Hong Kong comes to the fore yet again.
Better net defense coming from, that is Fong and Shum.
Chim Wing Lam on the service line. So consistent here for Hong Kong. Up until that service error, that is obviously the fault of the commentator once again.
The same commentator.
Never compliment players as they are about to serve. That should be the cardinal rule. But either way, 13-all here. And a chance here for Indonesia to take the lead. Nita Cesanti. And since I've learned from experience, I will not say anything about her service game.
She thanks you.
And what an answer there coming from Hong Kong as they regain the lead here again, as Shum Lam has been one of the more dangerous players for Hong Kong.
And again, that is a support that Hong Kong has been wanting to see, especially after that game against Vietnam.
Fong Kai on the service line here.
Good read.
And that sails out there coming for Indonesia. And Hong Kong now have a 2-point lead. And in a frame wherein it feels like every single point matters, a 2-point lead feels huge. The service error sends the point back. And all of a sudden, we are down to a 1-point contest yet again. Tagariani on the service line.
Oh, good fake.
And that time it was Hong Kong who was to the net first as Yim Wing Ni able to score.
And good defense by Yim Wing Ni. That was an over reception. She just allowed it to touch her hands. The coverage was there, but because the touch was so soft, it also changed their reaction time to the ball.
Shum Lam with the serve. Sabrina. Good net defense shown here by Indonesia. And can they keep this alive? Free ball to play with here for Hong Kong. Who do they turn to? Sabrina again. Had to adjust a bit there. And Pang unable to end it. Good rally here so far, but then the miss here coming from Rizkamara.
And you know that decision, she was sort of running out of breath there.
Another look at that here. Yeah, that felt like a tired hit, absolutely. As a timeout called on the floor, let's listen in.
Hey, ya. Harus pindah kita. Kan pindah bola kan poin. Ya, rally harus dapat. Yo. Gitu loh. Ya. Ayo bisa yo. Ayo. Yo, jangan menyerah, yo. Bisa yo. Cari satu yo. Cari satu, ayo. Ayo. Main, yo.
Words of encouragement there coming from Indonesia. As right now, they cannot allow Hong Kong to go on a bit of that lead that they had in set number 2 where they held all of a sudden a 10-point advantage. Indonesia looking for a reply here, so they turn to their captain, Sabrina, who scores off the block. Great timeout there.
And off that timeout by Coach Lily Pali, one thing that we kept hearing was him saying, Ayo, Ayo. I just asked somebody, Ayo is sort of like, come on, or let's go. So really trying to encourage his team to fight through it.
And that time, that has been an inspired timeout so far from Indonesia. 2 straight points off the bounce as Hong Kong now all of a sudden seeing their lead shrink down to 1. They needed to avoid a bit of that long scoring run that Hong Kong has had in the first 2 frames, and so far so good. Can Indonesia do something here? Sabrina with the serve. Time to over reception, not much to be played with, but then scoring through their net defense yet again is Hong Kong.
And we've talked about this back in the first set. The blocking of Hong Kong is there, so it will be crucial for Indonesia to set up their coverage. Somebody has to be there to keep that ball alive and expect it to go back on their side.
You know, you take a look at the first 2 frames. In set number 1, Hong Kong only had 1 block, but then in set number 2, they upped it to 5. It feels like it has started up a bit slow throughout this game, but has been getting better and more consistent all throughout. So that is something that Indonesia have to address. You're absolutely right. That time, lifted it over the blockers, but then the coverage was there. And again, Chim Wing Lam has been a driving force here for Hong Kong.
I love that interaction between Chim rather, and their coach, Kwok Kin Chuen, immediately getting a high five after that attack.
Yo to Sabrina, and what a hit that is. It stung.
And Agustina, the most senior member of this team at just 22 years old.
Leading by example here. Let's take a look at that again. Nothing stopping that. Fabiane on the service line here. And I believe there has to be a bit of clarification made.
Yeah, Coach Lilipali asking who the server should be. That is, of course, allowed.
All right, so all the clarifications have been made and the rotation errors avoided. And Indonesia a chance to come within 1. Hong Kong chance to break into 20 points first, and they do so courtesy of Chim Wing Lam yet again.
Chim Wing Lam, again, the highest pointer in their game against Vietnam. She had 9 points in that game.
Plays for Hip Hing domestically. Sent back here, and who do they turn to yet again? And of course, it is Chim Wing Lam, who has entered another level here for Hong Kong.
Wing Lam just changing it up. In the previous attack, she went hard. This one, soft tip. And the Indonesia just having a hard time adjusting on their feet.
Yo, kan? Receive awalnya bola pertama dulu. Bagus, baru nyerang. Oke? Ayo.
21-17 the count, and still shouting words of encouragement there, and you could clearly hear receive. The reception game has been a problem here so far.
Well, Hong Kong has been trying to attack hard. They've actually also been trying to attack Cesanti. They've been going back to her time and time again, trying to take her out in the offense, but Indonesia needs to set up something here. Go back to Cesanti. That is out.
Overcooked it. And Hong Kong are now within 3 of ending this contest. But again, we saw a while ago that Indonesia went on a 10-0 rally to even things up at 23-all in set number 2. So never count out this Indonesian team. But of course, Hong Kong now a bit more wary, now a bit more aware. Will try and do better. But that time, the service error sends a point back, and all of a sudden, it's a 4-point lead. Shaya Ningtyas on the service line here, as Indonesia are trying to mount a bit of a comeback. Chim again. And Nita Cesanti with the soft touch.
Smart thinking by Cesanti. Again, the defender was defending zone 1. Waiting for that down the line hit. Goes for that soft touch.
Just a 3-point lead here between these two. Shum Lam, she's been a bit quiet because of the scoring tear that Chim Won Lam has been going on, but Shum coming in strong. Great hit there. Perfect height for her. Chance here for Feng Ziyan to force a match point. And service ace just does that. And all of a sudden, we're one away from completing the sweep here for Hong Kong. Serving for the match here, Hong Kong. Get the ace and the win. They're now 1-1 in the AVC Challenge Cup, and Indonesia absorbed their first loss of the competition. It was tightly contested in sets number 1 and 2, but this time they were able to avoid a bit of a comeback here against Indonesia.
Well, unfortunately for Indonesia, as we saw in that last point, it was a hesitation coming from the side of Sesanti, and that's where really we go back to what we mentioned on top of the coverage. This is such a young team, talking about Indonesia, just an average of 19 years old. So you would see them, there would be times that you would see hesitation, there would be miscommunication, but the way that they handled themselves back in the second set should be a good sign that, you know, they can keep it together here in the Challenge Cup.
Well, the potential for Indonesia is undeniable, but for Hong Kong, their experience did shine through. Of course, if you're Indonesia, you're going to take a look at the times wherein they were unable to answer the long scoring rounds of Hong Kong. And for Hong Kong, you will be worried about some of those moments wherein they just let go of the rope and let Indonesia take control. Final point here, but Denise, it's a good way for Hong Kong to build on this after a tough first day.
Exactly. Especially since we did see some support. We were talking about this as well. It was Chim Wen Lang, one of their more consistent players. She had the support of Yu Ying Chi, but more so coming from Shum Lam, who we've seen every time she was on the front line, actually even from the back line, she was
Three-set win against Indonesia, a very young Indonesian team who showed flashes of potential here, Denise, but at the end just fell short.
You have to give it to Indonesia. I mean, players like Sesanti, Agustin, 16-year-old Junaida Santi as well did a tremendous job, even though they failed to get a set here against Hong Kong. But again, you said this, the potential of this Indonesia, this young Indonesian team, is just very evident in this match.
Well, they had a lot of potential, but at the end of the day, the experience of Hong Kong really shone through. They're a team that has had a bit of time together. As we take a look at the stats here for the entire game, what stands out for you here?
Obviously, the attacks. Hong Kong just out-attacking Indonesia. They did well on their blocks as well. Going back to that first game against Vietnam, they failed to get a single block. And now in this match, they had nine blocks here. They also got 6 aces. And although they had a lot of errors, especially in that second set where there was a 10-0 run by Indonesia. Just look at that, keeping it to 16. That means in the first and the third set, especially in the third, they will really able to clean things up and regain the control from Indonesia.
You know, you take a look at the aces in particular for Indonesia. They came in spurts there, really taking advantage of what has been a chink in the armor for Hong Kong in terms of their service reception. Let's see whether or not that can be addressed in the future games. Now, Bailey Sakot here is going to be joined by Yu Ying Chi in just a bit. Bailey, take it away.
Thank you, Paolo. We have here our player of the game, Yu Ying Chi of Hong Kong. Congrats on the win. First off, all right, thank you for doing this interview. Okay, so during the match, it was back and forth early. There's a rally already. It did not feel like 3 sets. It was a really long match. At one point during the second set, you led by 10 points, which looked like it was going to be Indonesia's for some of us. But you still closed that one out and you stayed composed.
For set 2,
I think we are kind of lost our confidence because we didn't do well in the receiving. So that's why even for attack, we cannot do it. I'm really happy that we made it. Because I think coach did everything they can. They used the timeout. They even used the challenge to help us to take a rest. And then we just focus on ourselves and we told ourselves we can do it. And that's why we made it. And for set 3, it's kind of smooth. Even for the beginning, we had the confidence right after the game, right after the set 2. That's why we become more and more focused. And our number 8 player, Chim Weng Lam, she is definitely the key player, and she did really well in the set 3. I think she scored more than 6 or 7. I don't know. I don't know exact the point, but she did really well, and it helped us to win the game.
Yes, and you mentioned the service reception, and this was the problem prior to this game, which was versus Vietnam, your first match. But this time you gave that problem to Indonesia, and you guys had a lot of service aces, and you adjusted in terms of your communication on the floor. What adjustments did you do during training?
For serving, our coach told us that is because Indonesia didn't play any matches, we have no information about them. So for the past few days, we focus on surfing. And then we target at 1 to 2 players of Indonesia team. And I think it helped us to gain confidence because some of us can make ace, and then they change the player as well. So it made our strategy work, and yeah, we win the game.
Ultimately, yes, you won the game. Now it's your rest day tomorrow, and you're up against Singapore the day after tomorrow. What are you looking forward to?
For this competition, we focus on 2 matches. So one is versus Indonesia, and another one we focus on versus Singapore. And we already took some competition video of them, and we will have meetings. So we will do our best in the game. We hope we can win Singapore as well.
Right, congrats again on the win, and good luck for the rest of our tournament.
Very much.
Back to you, Paolo and Denise.
Thanks so much. It was Bailey Sakot there being joined by Yu Ying Chi of Hong Kong. And I think it's safe to say that adjustments that they made there were number 2 of the 2024 AVC Challenge Cup for women. I'm Paolo Rosario alongside Denise Tan, and we'll see you for the next ones.